You're listening to Life Check Yourself with life coach, transformational leader, and dating and relationship badass, Marni Batista. Every week, you'll get the raw truth from top experts and real people on the important life and love issues you want to know about. So if you're ready to life check yourself in your relationships, your career, and the areas of your life that matter most to you, and you're not afraid to be called out on your stuff, then you're ready for what's next.
Life Check Yourself with Dr. Megan Rossi. Don't make those last 10 pounds the reason you aren't dating. Ladies, welcome to the show. I feel like the stars are aligned because I have been, as you know, I've been on my own health, well-being journey in the last couple of years since I had a ski injury, which left me bedridden at the beginning of COVID for about 3 months, and having a physical comeback and changing my approach to so many things about my physical self and approaching it from a place of well-being rather than, I want to be skinny or, I want to look a certain way. And that is why I love having guests like Dr. Megan Rossi on the show. She's a PhD. She's a registered dietitian. She's called the gut health doctor. And she's one of the most influential gut health specialists in the world. She's a practicing dietitian and nutritionist. She's a leading research fellow at King's College in London. Wait, isn't that like Oxford or Cambridge or...
Yeah, it's a pretty cool university. That's why I actually moved over from Australia to the UK to work as a research fellow at King's.
That's so cool because I took my kids there. At one point, my daughter wanted to go to Cambridge, and I was like, "Oh my god, this is so cool!" King's College. So she's that smart, people. She's the founder of the Gut Health Clinic, where she leads a team of gut specialist dietitians. She's got a book. She's got lots of cool stuff to talk about. I think I want to just get started about, like how our physical health and our food really connects to our brain and our emotional well-being, because that has really been a pivotal change for me, is to start thinking about food in a way of well-being rather than the way it was when I was growing up in the 80s and 70s, where it's like, get skinny, do 80 hours of cardio, like, eat cottage cheese. It's different now. Talk to me about that.
Absolutely. I mean, certainly when I was studying nutrition and dietetics 15 or so years ago, that's kind of what we got taught about nutrition, is that, food had an impact on our weight management and our appearance. And I guess, we looked at thousands and even millions of people in some studies. And we always saw that people who ate more plants actually did have other outcomes, like seemed to have lower rates of depression, seemed to have better hormonal balance and a number of other factors. But I guess we never really delved into understanding why until recently, until the discovery that we have literally trillions of bacteria in our gut. And this has really game changed, I guess, our understanding of nutrition and how nutrition has these systemic benefits on pretty much every organ in our body. And it comes down to the fact that these trillions of bacteria in our gut do so much for us. And depending on what we feed them will depend on the types of microorganisms, like the bacteria that live within us, and therefore the things they're able to do. So we're really getting a better understanding, I guess, of those mechanisms of things like the gut-brain axis. And we see people who eat more diverse range of plants, having them in their diet feeds a more diverse range of bacteria, which then supports our mental health, because these microbes actually can send messages to our brain and impact things like our depression levels, our anxiety levels, and things like that. So it's really, I guess, this new understanding of the power of food via our gut microbiome, which is just a sciencey name for all of those bacteria, that has led to this really exciting explosion, I guess, of the power of food.
Yeah. And I think it's so interesting. So when somebody, because I have clients and listeners that struggle, the symptom is their physical weight, right? And one of the things, and we're probably jumping the gun, but I think this is huge. So I'm going to just ask it right out of the gate here. Like if I eat plants, Megan, that's boring. I love food. I'm a foodie. Eating healthy is boring. I'm depriving myself. This approach you're talking about is so very different. So how do we talk to those people so that they can begin to be open to looking at food in a different way?
Yeah, look, absolutely. I mean, I'm a foodie by nature. That's why I went into dietetics, because I was obsessed with food. But then I also realized that food not only can taste amazing, it can also do amazing things for your body. So it's really bringing together those two worlds. So, the new book, How to Eat More Plants, really is fundamentally based on a couple of key principles. One is think about inclusion, not exclusion. So one of the things I get people to focus on is adding in extra plants in your diet, not cutting anything out. So, for me, white chocolate is my favorite food. And yes,
Yum.
I'm absolutely having that every single day. No one is going to tell me to cut that out. But what I do is make sure I add in extra plants like prebiotic foods, things like pistachios and dried mango and extra virgin olive oil to my white chocolate. And in turn, that transforms the power of that white chocolate. So yes, still delivers on the taste value, but what it also does is adds in a whole lot of these other types of dietary fibers, these prebiotics, which feed and fertilize the gut bacteria, which in turn does things like regulate my appetite hormone. So I'm feeling more content with a smaller piece, as well as things like blunts a blood sugar spike that would occur if you're just having the white chocolate on its own. So that's really one of the key principles, is thinking about how we can add extra plants into our diet and not cut anything out.
So talk to me about what's the difference between a prebiotic and probiotic? Because I take probiotics, but and also maybe you can explain, there's like all these numbers when you take these supplements. But I'm like, well, how many bazillions does one need? But talk to me, what's the difference, and why do we need to understand that as a part of this?
Yeah, look, there's only one letter difference. So I get why people get very confused between them. So prebiotics, prebiotics, essentially is specific types of dietary fibers which really fertilize our gut bacteria. And they're found in a range of our plant-based foods. So things like our legumes, garlic, onion, and there's a whole array of them. Now, what I recommend to people is if you're getting in, I challenge people to get in 30 different types of plants each and every week.
Okay.
You're going to be getting enough prebiotics in your diet. Now, when I say plants, rest assured, I'm not just talking about fruit and veg. There's actually 6 different plant-based food groups, and they all contain these different prebiotics. So you've got your whole grains, you've got your nuts and seeds, you've got your fruit, your veg, your legumes, and your herbs and your spices. Now, each different category actually provides our body with a wealth of different types of prebiotics and other plant chemicals. So trying to get a super 6 in your diet most days is really the ideal. And I'll talk more about how actually easy it is, no extra cost or effort to get in those 30 plus points a week. But coming back to the questions of prebiotics, so I very rarely prescribe a prebiotic supplement. There are a few cases in clinical practice where I would, but probiotics, so probiotic, is these live microorganisms, and they are the ones where they've shown to have health benefits attached to them. So they mostly occur in supplement form. So things like, capsules and powders and things like that. Now, I think the probiotic world is a very confused one. And I think I understand why a lot of people I see in clinic, 1 minute, they're like, oh, yes, definitely need to take a probiotic because the media says I do. Next week, oh, I'm chucking that away. It's a waste of my money, again, because the media is saying that. Now, the truth with a lot of these things is kind of in between. Okay. In terms of, if you have iron deficiency, you're not going to go and take a vitamin D supplement and expect your iron deficiency to improve, are you? Because they're different nutrients. The exact same things go with probiotics. Each different probiotic is usually bacteria, but some probiotics are yeast. They actually do different things in our body. So there is no point taking any off the shelf, even if it's at the highest dose possible, because it might be the wrong bacteria or the wrong type of yeast to treat that health benefit. So you need to be very therapeutic about choosing the exact one that's shown in, a clinical trial in humans that have a benefit. You need to take it the right dose for the right duration and the right form, so fasted or in a fed state. So in my first book, Love Your Gut, I actually got some of my colleagues from King's College in London to review all the probiotic literature. And they came up with 7 indications where there's actually quite good scientific evidence where we would recommend someone take a probiotic. And they've listed out the type that you would take, the duration, the dose, etc. So an example is if you have to go on antibiotics for whatever reason, there's good evidence to take either Saccharomyces boulardii or Lactobacillus rhamnosus GG, and you would take either or at 5 billion units twice a day throughout your antibiotic period and for a week after. Now, see how therapeutic that is?
Right,
that's like, oh my God, that's complex. But if you want the benefit, you need to do that. Otherwise, literally, there's no point wasting your money or your time on taking just any probiotic.
Oh my gosh. Okay. I need to read your first book too. Because I'm like dosing. I've got like more supplements than you can imagine. I'm probably just overtaking stuff.
Yeah. I mean, and just being cautious of that. Actually, there was a study, it was quite a small one, but still, I guess, a important landmark study, which showed that people who took probiotics after antibiotics, just any probiotic, their microbiome actually took longer to regenerate and reform its kind of healthy balance compared to those who didn't take probiotics. So actually we're starting to think that maybe it's not just, take it for safety. Actually, maybe you could be doing some damage by taking things that you don't necessarily need, because our microbiome is very much in the state of like harmony and balance. So we know that, antibiotics, for example, wipe a lot of them out, but they will regenerate if you fertilize them with those super 6.
Okay.
So fertilizing is probably more of a kind of beneficial way to regenerate your microbiome versus just taking any probiotic. Because you think about it, we've got literally trillions in our gut. And these capsules, if even, some of them may have 20 different strains, but that's nothing in terms of the entirety in our gut. So you could unbalance yourself if you're taking them without any need.
This is a great conversation because basically it's like, oh, if I take all this stuff, then I don't have to eat the certain way. And what you're saying is like, why don't you just pull it back and start from scratch and say what does it look like if I put the Super 6 in my diet? Okay. So explain so now we'll go back to the beginning. So you talk about plant-based diversity and these ideal number of 30 plants to add to our diets every week and why. So tell me what are some simple steps and some examples and how do we start to do that?
Yeah. So as I mentioned, the Super 6 is just those 6 different categories of plants. So they all contribute to your 30 plant points a week. Now, this 30 plant points a week, it stemmed from a research study in the US where they showed that people who ate at least 30 different plants a week had better gut health than those who ate the same 10 on repeat. And what they did, which I really liked in this study, is they looked at vegan, so 100% plant-based versus omnivores, so those who ate plants but also ate animal products. Okay. And what they showed, it didn't matter if you were a vegan or an omnivore. The key predictor of good gut health was that plant diversity. And I think this is definitely what I see play out in clinic, where you don't need to go vegan, 100% plant-based for good gut health. I understand, the animal cruelty, environmental, religious reasons for doing so. But in terms of health, it's not actually necessary. And I actually talk about, if you do want to go down that path, there are some key nutrients that you need to really consider because things like omega-3, which are mostly found in oily fish, is quite difficult to get in the plant form. You can get some sources, but it's not necessarily at a high enough dose. So I generally recommend people take an algae oil supplement for that. So in terms of some really practical ways, and this is essentially what the new book, How to Eat More Plants, is all about. It's about thinking things like in the morning, whatever you're having for breakfast, adding a teaspoon of mixed seeds on. Get, 3 plant points right there. Instead of getting the broccoli, get the stir fry mix of veg. Get another 3 points there. Don't just get your chickpeas, get your 3 bean mix as long as it's in water. Again, getting more of that diversity because each different type of plant contains hundreds of different types of plant chemicals which feed different types of gut bacteria. Even though we hear these superfoods, if you just ate those superfoods, what you would do is really narrow down your gut microbiome, and therefore you would lack a lot of the bacteria that regulate different hormones or produce different vitamins and things like that. So the optimal gut health is one that's got a really diverse range of gut bacteria, because that means they've got more skills to look after you. And to achieve that bacterial diversity, you need to feed it a diverse range of plants.
Okay.
So
And talk to us. Yeah, this is great. So talk to me about just general benefits of having good plant diversity and this overall good gut biome. Because you said it looks after us, meaning like it's protecting us from stuff that we don't want to have in our body, right? We want to be disease free or injury free. So talk to us about what is the benefit and what does the data show?
Yeah, it's a really exciting space. So in the book, I talk about these 5 different axes. So you've got the gut skin axis, where they've shown that nourishing our gut microbiome plays out on our skin. And that's a really fascinating area. In fact, because we have this billions of bacteria on our skin called the skin microbiome. And the 2 different bacterial communities in our gut and our skin talk to each other. So nourishing the bacteria in our gut impacts, things like the appearance of wrinkles, even one clinical trial showed. Really exciting there. Then I talk about the gut immune axis. We know that 70% of the immune system lives in our gut. And, we certainly have seen that also play out with COVID-19, where people who have better gut health also have a much lower risk of becoming unwell if they do get COVID-19. And again, highlighting that nourishing the gut can, improve your resilience, not just to COVID-19, but even things like the common cold.
Okay.
Talk about the gut metabolism axis. So talking, as we mentioned at the start, for people who really want to focus on weight management. It's completely fine if that's people's goals, whatever works for you. But I think people can easily fall into these food restrictive eating ways.
Yeah.
And we know that
I hate that.
In the short term, maybe you will lose some weight. But what we know is that cutting out, particularly some of these beneficial food groups, like things like your legumes or your whole grains, actually what that does is reduces down that bacterial diversity. And we think that going on these restrictive diets like the keto and the paleo, in the short term, yes, you lose weight, but actually after about a year, people not only regain that weight, but that they tend to gain extra weight from that restrictive nature. And we think one of the key mechanisms of that additional weight gain is because it damages that gut microbiome, which impacts our metabolism. So our bacteria does things like regulates leptin and ghrelin hormones, so things that make us hungry and full, as well as things like our sugar metabolism and our fat storage and things like that throughout the body. So nourishing the gut bacteria is incredibly important for our metabolism, which means essentially our weight management goals.
Okay, I have to ask you one question because I have a lot of people who are approaching or dealing with menopause. And I was just talking to a client yesterday and she was like, well, I just gained the COVID 10 and then there's the menopause 10 and there's nothing you can do about it. And I was like, I don't believe that. So does having a healthy gut biome, can it disrupt or positively impact any sort of metabolism slowing or any of those things that occurs as a result of menopause?
Absolutely. And that's the other axis I talk about, the gut hormone axis.
Okay, good.
We know that our gut microbiome actually helps regulate estrogen. So they produce a specific type of enzyme that helps take the estrogen that would normally be kind of pooped out or peed out and recycles that back into our blood system. So actually our bacteria play a really important role in estrogen regulation. And there's a clinical trial that shows that people who, women going through the menopause, if they increase the number of plants they have in their diet, they reduce things like hot flushes by about 20%. So in terms of the symptom management, we know that certainly helps. And then again, we know for the weight management element that yes, our hormones changing can predispose us and make it a little bit trickier for weight management, but that certainly is not, you certainly can override that via, again, nourishing that gut microbiome with plenty of plants. So not fixating on things like calories and all of that sort of stuff, because these ultra processed foods, which we tend to go for when we're calorie restricting, because we're like, hey, of course I'm going to have a Kit Kat because it's got, the same calories as a banana. I'm not going to have a banana. I'm going to obviously enjoy a Kit Kat. That sort of a mentality comes into mind. And then we start to see that the way that our sugars are regulated, particularly going through the menopause, is slightly different and therefore predisposes us to more blood sugar spikes, and therefore our metabolism starts to slow down a little bit. So we can override it by nourishing our gut microbiome for sure.
Okay. So we got hormones, we got weight. I cut you off. And so what are the other ones?
Our gut brain axis.
Our gut brain. Oh, great. Okay. Tell me about that.
Yeah. So, this is based on one of my favorite all-time studies. Now, it's a little bit old now. 2017 was the first landmark study to really show this, that nourishing these trains of gut bacteria via diet, via getting in those super six. And again, it wasn't just those plants. They also had things like live yogurt, which I talk a lot about, as well as things like oily fish in the diet. So very much that holistic Mediterranean type of diet. And what they showed is that people who were randomized to this diet arm, actually 32% of them had a significant improvement in their depression scores, which would have classified them as no longer clinically depressed after that clinical trial. Now, those in the control group, which was a befriending type of counseling, only 8% achieved that endpoint. And, this is something that really validated, I guess, what I'd seen in clinic for a decade, that we can improve people's mental health via the diet. Now, I want to make the disclosure that I know that depression can be very heterogeneous, and for some people, it has to be medically managed in terms of the medication. But we also have really hard and robust data like this that shows that diet can have a really meaningful and clinically relevant benefit. So I want people to feel very empowered if they are suffering with their mental health, that they can make a measurable difference in many cases by targeting their microbiome through diet and adding in.
Yeah, I think like all of this is it's demonstrating how empowering it can be to address all of these things that obviously we care about, right? These are these areas that you're talking about. Every single person listening can be like, oh, well, that would help me with this, or that would help me with that, or I struggle with this. And I think that when you start looking at it from a place of, things that feel outside of our control to solve them, it can be really, really disempowering and even more depressing, right? So what you're saying is like, wait, there's just a plan and it's inclusive and it's easy and you don't have to spend a ton of money on it. And it also can taste good. So that's amazing. So when you think about like some examples, that come up with that 30 points, like what are ways you can, because I know I'm looking at your like the Eat the Rainbow pancakes and the stir fry 5-way. I mean, you've got all these amazing like prebiotic Rocky Road. These are all really sound like tasty things. So how does this whole approach really work for people?
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, they can take it as holistically as they want. And because I know that everyone's on their own gut health journey. For some people, their first thing is just trying to add in one extra plant into their diet per week. And that's enough for them. Other people actually want to take that 28-day plant point challenge, which is in the book there, where they challenge themselves each and every day to add in an extra plant. And I give people more specifics about things like blending in some cauliflower in your smoothie, for example, which sounds gross. But guys, you can't taste the cauliflower.
I did it. Somebody recommended it to me as an option for the banana, right? And so I put frozen cauliflower rice in my smoothie, and it tasted like really good.
Yeah. Yeah, it actually adds like the creaminess of it, right?
Yeah. Who knew? Okay, this is great. I'm also on board getting your book for sure. Okay, keep going.
And then also I have these different menu plans in there. So I've got one menu plan for busy people, one for feasting families, one for sensitive guts, which I think is a topic we should probably touch on.
Okay.
I don't want that to be a barrier for some people who go, oh, I want to eat plants, but they don't agree with me. So
yeah, right.
And for those people, you can literally follow, all the recipes in the book to have your weekly menu.
Okay.
Or I also have like a printout version where people can adjust the menu according to kind of their lifestyle and all that sort of stuff. Because I want people to feel like it's very personalized to them. But, some of the recipes in the book you mentioned, but, another favorite of mine is my spinach and ricotta stuffed pasta shells. And I'm actually from a Italian family. So, food very much was in my blood and my genes, the love of it. And I grew up on a farm actually where all my cousins and my nana and nunu lived. And at the center of the farm, we always used to go to make things like ravioli and spinach ricotta ravioli. But I guess that was kind of before I knew about the health benefits.
Right.
So what I've done is kind of like also much easier because I don't make ravioli in London anymore. Sadly, I don't have all the skills. But what I've done to that recipe is taken out half the cheese and added in a can of mixed beans. So not only does that, still have that beautiful creaminess of the ricotta and feta in there, but actually I've added in a load of fiber and prebiotics to feed the gut bacteria at the same time. I've also not just added the spinach, but added in some frozen peas, which gives it this nice little kind of sweet texture to it. And then instead of actually making ravioli, I've just got some open shells and stuffed them in there with a base of sun-dried tomatoes and garlic and onion, which, really works together in that flavor. So, that dish contains 10 plant points and is a great one that you can like make in bulk. Like the stuffing, I always make a triple batch, put it in the freezer. So then whenever I've got a rush day, I literally just pop it out and then spoon it into some pasta and dinner's served sort of thing. So it's very much about convenience eating, and all the recipes, have a little asterisk of what you can freeze, and the fridge range recipes, which is the stir fry ones where you get those kind of slightly wilted veg that are there in the fridge at the end of the week and you're feeling a bit guilty about chucking them out, and kind of really easy and simple ways to kind of
you could just revive them and cook them. I thought you couldn't cook like broccoli or maybe it's broccoli if it's like, or kale, like if it's got yellow, is it dead? Do I chuck it, Megan, or do
No, not at all. You're absolutely fine to eat it.
Oh my God.
No, a little bit of bruising on plants actually, interestingly, usually shows they've got slightly more polyphenols in them because they've undergone stress and damage, and the plants react to that by producing these polyphenols. And polyphenols are these beneficial plant chemicals which nourish our gut microbiome as well as, things like our skin.
Damn.
So adding in the wrong ones.
I put it in the bin. No.
Never again.
So cook it, don't toss it.
Yeah. Absolutely.
What do they say in Australia? Don't be a tosser. Is that what they say?
Yeah. Don't be a tosser.
I have family that lives in Australia. And so they're always like, don't be a tosser. So, and that was not even an Australian accent, but don't toss it. Don't put it in the bin. Eat it.
Absolutely. And I mean, with all the cost of living as well, we want to really make the most of the food that we buy, not to mention the environment and stuff like that. So yeah, absolutely. A little bit of bruising, go for it for sure.
Let me ask you this. This is maybe off topic, but maybe not. So when you're storing, so you buy all these things like, the fruits, the vegetable, is there an ideal way to store them in a fridge to maximize their impact, like versus the plastic that it comes with, or putting it in a container? Is that impacted like a lot to where you should be worrying about it? Or is it just like media hype selling stuff?
Yeah, I mean, there is a little bit of media hype attached to that. We do know that keeping it in kind of the bottom of the fridge where it's a little bit cooler, like things like your lettuce and your green leafy veg can keep it revived for a little bit longer. But, if you have like wilted lettuce, what you can do is add a little bit of water to them and then put it back in the fridge, like in a plastic bag, and it kind of revives, it kind of soaks up some of that liquid to kind of get that crunch back.
I didn't know. What about, can you cheat if you have legumes that are in a can? Is that also really bad versus like soaking them, cooking them? Because I know for me in the RV, I'm always looking for like something that's not going to use a lot of pans.
Yeah, do not be silly. I don't soak any of my legumes tinned all the way. Just make sure they're not in salt or any brine. And if you have a little bit more of a sense of gut, what I recommend is you double rinse them. And that's one of the things that I talk about for people who find that having extra plants makes them a little bit more bloated. And
let's talk about that.
Stuff like that. Yeah.
So what do we do?
It's certainly something that I hear a lot in clinic. And we know that about 30% of us have a slightly more sensitive gut. And the brilliant thing is our gut microbiome can absolutely adjust to whatever we feed it. It just takes time. It takes time for the microbes to be able to build up the enzymes needed to properly digest these super sick. So if you don't currently include many legumes in your diet, so things like the chickpeas, lentils, and then you just start having, a can every day, your gut bacteria have a bit of a frenzy and they kind of over ferment it, produce extra gas. And it's not damaging or bad, but if you do have a sensitive gut lining, that increasing gas production can stretch out your intestine and you get a little bit of cramping and stuff like that in those with more sensitive guts. So how we get around that, and I talk more through, I guess, a sensitive gut protocol, but it's just very slowly adding these plants in. So instead of having a whole can, it would be like opening up a can, having 1 tablespoon in one of your meals each, but having it each day. So kind of training your microbiome to be able to digest it efficiently. And, legumes is such an easy win in terms of cost, health benefits, and ease. So I really recommend people try get them in, but go slow if you do notice that you've got a sensitive gut. Or if you've got iron guts and you get a bit of extra gas, don't worry about it. It's just, a sign of a well-fed microbiome, essentially.
That's so great. Yeah. And what I like about this too is that you're easing it in. And a lot of these things you can literally like nuts and seeds, you can just throw on. What are your favorite? Because I like to add that to a salad. Like I'll add some sunflower seeds or I'll add some, what do you call it?
Pomegranate
like pumpkin seed. Pumpkin. Oh, I haven't tried those pumpkin seeds. But like, what else can you just like throw on your salad or throw on something that gives you some plant points?
Yeah, I mean, any of your mixed seeds, your mixed grains are also a really good one. So the night before, I'm not sure what they have available in the US, but in the UK, we have, these mixed grain packs where they've got like 8 different types of grains and it takes 10 minutes to cook. I always make sure I do a double batch and then have, cooled grains in the fridge, and actually cooling the grains also increases the type of fiber and resistant starch, which is, again, another really healthy thing to have. So have it in the fridge and then sprinkle it over a salad, a quarter of a cup, just having some extra grains there. I think that's a really big win.
Do you mean whole, like quinoa? Wouldn't you say whole grain?
Quinoa, buckwheat, freekeh. I really love wheat berries. Have you had wheat berries before?
No, I haven't, but I saw them in a health food store the other day and I was like, wait, are these goji? Is that different goji berries? Anyway, so I was like, what is this?
Yeah. So actually in the book, I have this section called Meet the Grains and then Meet the Legumes. And what I do is go through 8 of my favorite grains and 8 of my favorite legumes and explain how to switch it into your diet, because a lot of people feel a bit nervous, like, oh, I've never cooked with this before. How do I make it? So kind of like, switch it in a chocolate brownie, for example, for my black beans, or switch it in like barley. You would switch that in for things like risotto rice and stuff like that, just like easy switches. Then I talk about health benefit of it. I talk about the flavor profile of it, and then just some fun facts. So you feel very confident with including these maybe unfamiliar foods to you in your diet. But literally there's, thousands and thousands of amazing plant species that are available to us, yet most of us kind of stick to things like wheat, corn, and rice on a daily basis. And it's like, we need to get diversifying if we want that really beneficial gut microbiome.
We got to get diverse, people, in everything we do, including our food.
Absolutely.
My favorite thing about being on the road is I've been going to these amazing farmers markets. And I love microgreens. Are microgreens, do they do anything for you?
Yeah, really beneficial. Yeah.
Really?
And those phytochemicals, absolutely.
Oh my God. Because if you go to all these like towns all over America, like there are all these independent growers and you can just get, and you can put it on your sandwich, you can put it on your salad, you can make it the salad, and it's so tasty. And I don't even know if it's healthy, but I just felt like it was healthy. But that's my favorite part of farmers markets is finding microgreens.
Absolutely. Just challenge yourself to getting as many different of the microgreens as you can. Try again, diversify in that category.
I love that.
And even things like herbs and spices, I think, are very much underrated. We get a bit nervous. We're like, oh, I don't know. I don't want to ruin the dish. But you know what? If you just start with one shake, taste the stir fry, for example, you can't really go wrong. Same with things like roasted veg, just have a shake on it, taste what it is like, and then, add a few more. But we know again that these herbs and spices are underrated in terms of their gut loving potential.
That's amazing. I had a cooking teacher once, and she was just like, for salad, she would just chop fresh herbs, and just throw it in. So like basil, mint, I know some people don't like cilantro, parsley, but it's just like chop, 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 and just throw it in there. And I was surprised how it made the salad so robust.
Absolutely. Just, it's kind of like lettuce, that amount that they've added to it. Hey, yeah, I mean, I can't get enough of things like basil, and I do like cilantro. I know a lot of people don't, but
I know.
Even living in London,
yeah,
they do that. Having just a windowsill, because you don't get many backyards here. Having a windowsill, it's so easy to grow herbs, and so cost effective as well.
I love that. Well, ladies, there's a link to the book, How to Eat More Plant-Based, or How to Eat More Plants, right?
Yeah.
How to Eat More Plants, which is like the best title ever because it's just do it, and how to do it. There's a link in the show notes. I'm definitely getting the book. I'm always looking for great recipes and ways to easily make life on the road healthy as possible. Dr. Megan Rossi, I am so happy to have met you, and you are brilliant. And I'm just so grateful that you are helping people life check themselves in the area of food. Any last tips? Like if there's one thing they can do, if they feel like, this feels hard, what's one small step they can do?
I'm going to take it away from just the food, because I think we've covered a lot about food. And what I will say is chewing your food well. I know it sounds ridiculously easy.
Great.
But actually, studies have shown that if we're not chewing our food at least 20 times, we're actually not getting all that benefit that we could. We actually poop a lot of that goodness out. So really, to make the most of the nutrients that you're feeding your body to get from your gut into your blood, you need to chew at least the 20 times.
That is amazing. My dad used to say that his Aunt Juliet said, put your fork and knife down and chew 20 times.
He was ahead of the game.
That was what sophisticated people did. So be sophisticated, put your fork and knife down, and damn chew. I love that. Ladies, thanks for listening. And whatever you do, remember to life check yourself. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye. Hey, thanks for tuning into today's show. So if being in an intimate relationship in which you feel 100% seen, heard, and accepted by a high caliber man is a priority for you right now, and you're interested in seeing if you're a fit for working with me and my team at Dating with Dignity, here's what I want you to do. Just head over to DWD VIP, that's D as in dating, W, D as in dating, VIP.com, and book a call to speak with my team. We'll get on the phone with you for about 60 minutes, and you'll get crystal clear on what's stopping you from finding true love right now. We'll also take a look at what you want to create, what you want your whole life to look like when you're able to finally be fully expressed as a woman in a healthy relationship with an incredible guy. And if we can help you get from where you are right now to where you want to be, we will show you the fastest path possible that makes sense for you to do that. We help smart, successful women all over the world solve this one missing piece in their life so they can finally have it all. So to see if we can help you do the same thing, head over to DWDVIP.com. I'm Marni Batista, and let's talk soon.